Good morning. So, you are from Yuki-san. You are from Tamachi. All right.
Yes, I'm from Tamachi. Yeah.
Okay. So, I think what we have planned is basically I'm gonna discuss about the overall background of a cybersecurity area, including the internet, cyberspace, and then there's some discussions and make sure that you have a kind of background information about what the cybersecurity would be. Is that going to be all right? So, Takeda Sensei, you were not in this class last week, so you should introduce yourself to everybody.
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Keiichi Takeda, professor of Keio University, SFC. I've been working for the cybersecurity from almost beginning of the internet around the 1990s, and I worked for the government and consulting companies and the universities. So I work for security from various point of view. My current interest is slightly shifting to physical security area. As you may heard, I was doing the search and rescue operations using a drone last week. There is a missing child incident in Doshi village. It's about 1.5 hour drive from this campus, so it's very near. And we went there 3 nights to attend the rescue operations. And at this moment, the firefighters or police are not utilizing drone or infrared cameras or those technologies. So we had to help them. So I would like to work to encourage the government to utilize those new technology for that kind of activities. Nice to meet you.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's Yuki-san. So this week is that okay? That I'm gonna lead a discussion on the kind of background information about the cybersecurity. And so jump in anytime if you wanna say something. All right. Okay. So basically, what I'd like to start with is that what is cyber. Well, internet security. It says internet security. Internet security architecture. Or what is an internet architecture? What is a security architecture? I'm not stepping in that. And then also we're gonna take some of the policy issue about the cybersecurity in this class. So how the policy discussion started, and then what is the structure, especially. I've been, and many of us in the faculties in this class have been, working with the government for the cybersecurity issues as well. So, what's government policy issue in Japan for the cybersecurity and as well as the other countries? So you may want to bring your interest in your countries, your nation's policy about cybersecurity thing. And so this country is a little bit different from other countries. So it's a different country by country, nation by nation, very much because of the various reasons. I'm gonna discuss about that with you. All right. So let's work for a while about the kind of general background I want to share. Make sure you to understand on this issue. Okay, go ahead. What is cyber? No, wait a minute. What is cyber? 難しい. What is cyber?
I thought cyber was a internet application where it's kind of like it's the complexity inside how we use internet.
That's probably the word cyber actually from the science fiction writer Gibson. His name is Gibson, and then William Gibson. I think that's 60s, right? 65 or something. And then, so when the computer science is kind of becoming very interesting, and then probably that might, 65 is almost a year when the first artificial intelligence type of software was invented, and so the software can interact with a human being, and like a human, and it's a very simple software that you type in the message and then analyzing grammatically and then responding based on the various thesaurus and other dictionaries, and then responding. So if you are utilizing that software, and then so you can feel like you are talking with a software. So that's a dialogue with the software. The software name was called Eliza. Anybody know why it was called Eliza? Eliza. Nande Eliza? Why Eliza? The first dialogue AI software, probably written in MIT, I believe, is the Nande Eliza? Why Eliza? Do you heard about the musical My Fair Lady? 知らない? 全然知らない. Nobody. Nobody knows. Okay. Anybody knows a musical called My Fair Lady? Raise hand. Nobody. I'm sorry. Okay. And the Naramo, Dara Institute. Anybody heard about the musical My Fair Lady? Nobody.
Anyone here?
Nobody.
No.
All right. So, I'm sorry. I'm changing subject. I mean, the Eliza, name Eliza took from the original theater script called Pygmalion, and the flower lady, speaking a very bad language, was named. She was called Eliza, and then she became like a princess language by the language training. That's the story of the My Fair Lady, and based on the story Pygmalion. Therefore, the probably hope about the kind of software learning the languages and the other thing. The original name came from that story. Anyway, so since nobody knows about that, then I'm feeling very, very uncomfortable generation gap, but that's fine. You are young and I'm not. All right, sorry about that. So cyber, okay. So cyber, yeah, as you mentioned, then it's basically the space of created by internet, and especially on the digital technology. Probably that's the general definition. There could be a kind of diversity of definitions, but that's fine. When we call the cybersecurity, then it's cyberspace is the top of the internet, and various. And the internet is very good. So last week we talked about the abuse of the internet space, and therefore cybersecurity is basically security on the cyberspace, which is mainly focusing on abusers abusing of the internet space, but not only the abusers, but reliability, accuracy, and the other thing is also probably the scope of cybersecurity. But anyway, Y2 is cyber. Is next slide. I don't know what space, cybersecurity, cyberspace, cybersecurity, cyber attack, cyber crime, cyber defense, cyber war. All right. So cyber means the digital space, digital-based space on the internet. I think I support that answer. Next slide. All right, this is a little bit different story, but I want to know that living in this time of the history, which is 2019. And so I want you to understand that what the year you are living today, especially focusing on a kind of your age, like you have, after 10 years, then you're going to be like, kind of stepping into the leaders of the society now. 20 years, certainly you're going to lead the entire society. And in 30 years, then you're going to be, some of you are going to be like a leader of leaders, seniors, getting into that age. That's probably your age. So that's very natural. And so what want to be your age in terms of cyberspace thing? So I used this slide for the kind of expecting your age, what's going to be. And our age started like a 35, maybe 40 years ago for the internet. But the year 2000 is basically 10 years after the SFC was created. So as NARA, NICE was created the same year, actually. We were founded. So 10 years after our universities, our campuses are created. And that's year 2000. So during the 90s, then a lot of development of the internet was done. In the early 90s was still a developing age of the TCP/IP, web, and the other thing. And then they pretty much ready for everybody to use the internet with the first half of the 90s. So when the SFC started, SFC was ready, NICE was ready, but 5 years after, 1995 was the first year of anybody can access the internet. So the commercial internet service started from 93 in this country, and so was the United States. So all over almost all over the world, if you want to access the internet by subscribing the internet service, that's only started in 93. Before that, you have to be at the university like SFC. And then you could use from the late 80s internet at the universities, but not at home or not with a business, because nobody was selling the internet at that time. So very, very short lifetime, right? So 95 was a big year. I told you last week, but the Windows 95, which is a bundling the TCP/IP software for free on the Windows operating system. So that was the first free software-based internet was available for anybody who were using the Windows operating system that time, which was a major PC operating system. So that was 5 years ago from this picture, right? And then after 95, a lot of business coming in, and especially in the United States. All my friends who's been working for the development of the internet, they left the university and they started up a company. And then so it's a very much a kind of IT bubble, we call it. IT companies and the Silicon Valley and other companies. So computer scientists was too busy for starting up businesses that time. So many of them are incredibly successful in terms of capital gain and everything. So if you have $100 to start up a company, then 3 months later, your $100 can be $1 million. So that's crazy time. So naturally, all the university researchers on this area helping or starting up the companies. So late 90s was our time in Japan for contributing for the development of the internet. So anything, the TCP/IP version 6 internet software was largely created by this group of wide project. So, NIST, SFC, and those universities. So they are in your Apple computers today. So that circle, size of the circle, red circle in this picture, in Asia, that time, mostly Japan. So Japanese users were number 2 participants, of the internet space after the United States that time. So naturally, then when the major portion of the users, which is the US, and they left from the development and the research arena, therefore, we had to take care of that. So that's late 90s. And then after late 90s, 2000. So this is a 2000 snapshot. And why don't we, and the 6% of the human beings are accessing the internet at that time. And then let's go to this year. All right, so look at the size of the, size is representing the number of a population for the internet. Therefore, the Asia is a majority, majority of the users. And Africa is growing very rapidly. Europe and North America is reaching to the full capacity, right? Because it's almost 90%. So the 90% of the population in there is only 10% left. So no space for the future growth in terms of internet users in there. And Japan is also, Japan is 99%. Well, it depends on how to count, but we are kind of reaching to the ceiling in terms of a number of internet users, a little bit left for the babies and the elderly people. But again, look at the red one inside Asia. That was mostly Japan, I said. But now Japan is reaching mostly 90%. That means a lot of space for the India, China, and the other countries. Okay, that's your age. So, and then look at the Africa. Then it's 40% of the population in Africa is accessing the internet. So that's 60% more to access. And then so that's Asia is only a half occupation on the number of users in the. Then the entire population is 60%. All right. So that's a status of today. So when the world, the right 56.8, when do you think that turned out to be 80% or more? How long it takes? The world population of the internet users reaching 80%. When do you expect?
I think maybe in the next, maybe in 2050, I think majority of the people on the planet should have.
All right, 2050. So it's like a 30 years. 30 years from now, then the world population is going to reach 80%. Any other idea from, okay.
Maybe in the next 10 years.
Next 10 years. So it's next 10 years. It's like 2030. All right. But the point is that the year 2019 is 56.8% of the world population. So whatever I don't know it's an accurate number or not. But anyway, so now 60% about, and my question is how long do you think to reach to 80% from this year? So that was the question. So you can answer that question without seeing the slide anyway. So anybody?
Any student?
Somebody said 50 years, 30 years, no. 10, 50. 30 years, 10 years, and any other. 10 years means 2030 and the 2050 was the two answers from this class at SFC. What is yours? Longer, shorter, middle, you agree?
I can say maybe in 5 years.
5
So-
years.
Yeah, 5
All right,
years.
that's very aggressive. Okay. Is this yours? All right. So, all right. So, yeah, of course, we don't have an answer. My guess, well, any cases, right? It's just 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. After 30 years, how long are you going to be?
How old am I going to be? I'm going to be around 53.
53. Okay. He's going to be 53. He mentioned the longest term in the class, right? Yeah, so far. All right. So 5 years is going to be like you're going to be before 30, right? Okay. So anyhow, I don't surprise. It's going to be happening in the 5 years for various reasons. And because we are now targeted on covering, increasing that number, and specifically on these are the kind of not very congested area, right? In the rural area, we should say, and so we name it internet inclusion. So we are trying to reach them in whatever the way. So many leading countries is trying to support the internet coverage on those areas very intensively. Therefore, it's accelerating the number, speed up for the covering the rest of the areas who are not reaching the internet today. And the Canadian government, for example, the funding the North Arctic Ocean, their ice is melted. You know that, right? Therefore, there is a ship route started, and then those ships, including those ships who are installing the fiber cable in a submarine cable. So it's succeededly connecting most of the Eskimo people, and the Canadian government 700 million USD funding was for the Eskimos' digital divide. I mean, solving the digital divide thing. All right. So we have a fund from National Science Foundation, United States, for the covering the South Pacific islands to be connected to the internet. So those are the example there. Japan JICA is funding Southeast Asia for reaching the internet. Well, the internet infrastructure is just so important. It's not only a kind of internet application today, but also the accessing the finance, accessing the financial services, accessing the bank services, accessing the education, accessing various things. So it's basically the infrastructure of the lifeline activities. So therefore, any government have a good reason to support the increasing the government, that number now. Therefore, it might be fast. So that's a reason why I'm not surprising if that is reaching in 5 years, but 10 years, obviously not. And therefore, if the United Nations is targeted on SDGs goal year as 2030, and by that time, which is like 10 years ahead, it's very likely that that number is going to be changing into 80% or very close. So that's your age. So you're going to be working, living on a space not only a cyberspace, but a real space. But you can say in your age that internet is for everyone. So that's your age. And at the same time, then you have to be working to set up this environment of a cyberspace to be secure, trustful, reliable, and accurate, right? So because everything is sitting on top of the cyberspace platform. All right, so I'm going to tell a little bit about that architecture thing, right? Go ahead. Did I use this slide last week? 使った? All right, so we talked about this, right? Okay, so then internet is creating the cyberspace. Go ahead. So it's a very easy, simple structure. So the coverage, increasing the coverage of the internet is going to be very, very fast. All right, good. And then, so spending this time, and then this is a kind of recap of last week. So it's okay. Go ahead with the next slide. Next slide. So I talked about the collaboration, innovation.
You can see the slide now.
Okay, good. All right. So that was a very short time for rebooting. Did you? Okay. Anyway, so yeah, this is basically the when we are talking about the cybersecurity abusers' risk of the cyberspace, then we should basically, this is the simplest architecture we should think about. So internet is a global, and then IoT data is exchanging globally based on the web and the other thing, and the service platform like encryption technology, right? Pieces. So that's going to be a very important part of when we are talking about security, right? So your private information, your valuable information, like a credit card information, the other thing, is going to be encrypted at the sending site, sending browser, actually. And then throughout the internet, it's all encrypted and received by the proper entity who can decrypt. That's the encryption mechanism, public key encryption system. So that's a mechanism built into the service platform of the global internet. So it's everywhere standardized, and then it's the same way. So no matter you are utilizing the Windows, Apple, smartphone, Android, iOS, any system, Linux, Chromebook, then it's all there. So it's standardized, and therefore it's same all over the world. And that architecture, I'm showing that on the entire horizontal part on the bottom three. And then anything can be sitting on the top of it. And therefore, the very inexpensive development you can do. If you have an idea, then you can start up new services on the internet. Therefore, it's a very inexpensive, very cheap. So innovation can be happening because it's cheap. So if you have a mistake, and then you can change it. And if you want to modify that, you can change that in a very inexpensive way. So it's not something like you have starting up automobile company, you create from a tire, body, and then a physical thing, and then selling that to the market, and selling that beyond the market of the nations, so that meaning that they exporting your automobile to the other countries. That's a very, very, very big money and the time and the people you're going to need, but not on the cyberspace. You can almost dump anything, group of people, 3 people, 4 people, and they're starting up. So that's a good side. So I said ethical use of the cyberspace, but the same thing happening to somebody who are now thinking that way, which is abusers of the technology. So they are also easy to do some of the nasty things on the cyberspace. So we have to think about expect about those abusers' behavior in order to this entire space, the cyberspace, to be safe and reliable and trustful. Okay, go ahead. Well, internet is a kind of a floating environment defined on top of the various digital communication technology. So internet doesn't care about the physical transmission system. So wireless LAN, Ethernet, coax cable, optical fiber, and the satellite, right? The flying object in the air. So because it's including the wireless communication anyway. 3G, 4G, 5G is maybe the trend that you're going to be facing this year, starting this year, and then everywhere it's going to be the 5G probably. So it's going to be an exciting time. But at the same time, then you have to think about the kind of higher, faster infrastructure on the mobile communication, and think you also have to think about what the abusing of the 5G technology, right? So what's the difference from the abusers of LTE to a 5G abuser? It might be difficult to answer, but anyway, eventually we're gonna discuss about that. And go ahead. Who should be responsible for the internet? That's a very difficult question. Who should be responsible of the safetiness of the internet? All right. Who? Any idea? That's a great stupid question. Who should be? Who owns the internet?
I wouldn't say there's like an ownership to internet because it's like out of control at this point.
Okay. Out of control. All right. Is that out of control, or what's responsible? Do you feel responsible about the internet space?
No idea.
No. You don't think so? I want all of you in my class to be responsible for the internet, because I've been responsible for the internet. I feel that way. If something bad happening on the internet, that's my fault. If something good happening on the internet, that's their goodness. That's how I've been living on the process of developing the internet all the time. If anything bad happening, that's my fault. Tell me. If good, and then I go to Google and then thank Google, right? So that's my life. So because unfortunately you are in my class, therefore you have to be, I want you to be this kind of same thing. Well, actually, so I don't know. Is there any answer to this slide to the next slide? I wanna see the next one. That's different thing, right? Who made this, right? これ違くない? We moved two slides after, maybe? Who? Oh, okay. This might be the answer. All right. So, yeah, okay. Okay, I don't want to see this slide yet. Go back to the question. All right. Okay, good. Now I started to like this, right? Okay. So if something very bad is happening on the internet, then who should be responsible for that incident? I mean, I said anything bad happening, then that's my fault. But that's too much. I apologize. But so if something bad happening on the internet, then to whom are you gonna claim?
I feel like everyone on the internet has like a role.
Thank you very much. That's very great news. I mean, what's going to be happening when the internet shut down today, and you're going to be in problem, right? Okay, who should, I mean, be responsible for that outage of the?
So if the internet would be shut down today, I think that it really depends on the situation behind it. If somebody did it by mistake or if somebody did it with intent, that person or that organization or that nation should be responsible for that.
Organization of that nation should be responsible. Okay? Bad boy like you, right? How can you stop the internet? Okay, I'm going to be asking a lot of money, and forget about the ethics or anything. You can do whatever you want. How you wanna crash the internet?
I want to.
Where you wanna go?
If you use the SNS to.
Okay. Good. Okay, kill lying, destroy lying, and then probably many people's going to be in problem, right? How are you going to be stopping the internet?
How are you going to be stopping?
Yeah. If you really want to do that, then
I can't stop using it.
you can't stop it. That's a great answer. So any answer from NICE? How you want to stop the internet? How you can stop the internet? Any idea? For 3 days, your mission is to stop the internet. How you can do that? Any idea?
Maybe going outside the area that is no signal for the internet, like in the forest, go camping outside or go for sightseeing.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. Is that you want to get rid of the internet? That's how, right? Yeah. Okay. But my question is about how to stop the operation of the internet. Well, as a part, I mean, it's depend on your way. Is there any way you can think? But that idea was stopping the SNS service, and then it's a part of the internet, but it's a kind of a very effective way that get the people to be in program. If you lose their line access, for example. Oh, by the way, I invited the line CEO to my class in next class next month, I believe. So if you want to join, then and the question, then you can
Here?
Anything.
One more
Go ahead.
opinion. So
Go ahead.
I think I will first try to stop Google. If you manage to stop Google, it will be a huge step on stopping the internet.
Okay, great.
But how would you stop Google? I'm not really sure.
Huge.
It's not like you will attack a centralized internet provider, but the servers are very different. Yeah, they are located in different places, so you can really go to a place and stop the internet.
Right. So you say it's a very difficult because it's a distributed, in any of the services, including the ISP and the Google. So, is there any effective way to stop Google?
Not really.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a great point. That one of the stability of the internet is created by what you've been discussing. And then it's distributed, and then if something crashed, then other things going to recover and replacing. So there is a data backup in a different location, hopefully, and therefore, even the data is going to be lost, it's going to be recovered. So the service-wise, they are designing internet in a distributed manner, and mutually backupping each other, therefore very strong. So we call it autonomously distributed system. So geographically distributed and functionally distributed, and the redundancy of the service distributed. So when something happened on the one part of the entire system, then the other part's going to be replacing that function. Therefore, it's very difficult to stop the internet. And especially the one single point of a services, then it's easy that this system crashed and then no service anymore. But if the service is distributed around the world, then it's very difficult to stop the entire services. So internet itself is designed that way. Therefore, I was responsible of the domain name system. So something.com, something.thing operation. For a long time, I was chairing the committee of the operators. And then when the 9/11 happened, and the US government and any other nation government asking me that is there the risk of stopping the internet? And because there is a newspaper article on the Washington Post cover article there, if we stop the 13 root server operators, then the domain name will die, meaning that the URL will die, meaning that all the web service is going to die. So therefore, internet will die. That was the article talking about. And then the question came to me, and then, is this true? And my answer is no, it's not true. Because we have a certain operators, diversity in the location, diversity of hardware, software, and the time zone especially, so that when the one day starting in Japan, next one is Europe, but while something happened in Japan, then Europe can replace and the US can replace throughout the day. So it's very much diversity was a source of strengths, and then the distributed system is also the very important thought. So the basic infrastructure at that time, and after the 9/11, 2001, then we've been working very hard to having many copies of the root servers around the world. We do have 300 of root servers around the world. I'm not telling you where they are. Therefore, you don't even have a hint to cluster one out of 300. And then if you are successfully stopping the one out of 300, then don't worry, 299 other servers going to be providing you the domain name system. So that's one of the way how the stability of the internet operation is achieved. So you mentioned about you think about the Google, stopping Line, stopping anything who are the major services of the internet. That's fine, but it's very difficult to stop that actually, because it's nobody owns it, and not a single point of failure. So multiple and redundant and distributed around the world. So that's the strength of the internet. So from the stability point of view, it's good. But 5G is talking about the latency. So that's another interesting question about the behavior of the internet. When we are expecting the 5G to be good, then the low latency is one of the key issues. Okay. Oh, by the way, internet is connecting the entire world, right? Do you know how much time on the internet to go to the other side of the planet and coming back. So dialoguing, communicating with, say, Japan, Brazil. That's almost the other side of the planet, right? Okay, so you were communicating with the other side of the planet, and then what's going to be the latency or?
Wouldn't the latency depend on your connection from both sides, like the server on the other side as well as your own internet speed connection?
That's kind of true, but more simply, then the speed of the internet is same as speed of
light.
Yes. So speed of the internet is the speed of light. Therefore, if you are familiar with the speed of light, light goes to Brazil, and coming back from Brazil, that's the round trip time of your data to Brazil. So what is the round trip time of the light, speed of light to the entire globe? It's a one go and back. Don't you know how fast the speed of light? Not exactly.
Can it travel like the Earth, like 4 rounds? What was it? 4 rounds? Like.
Yeah, it's a good way, but it's almost. Do you know how speed of light? Did you run with this light? You can ride with the speed. Six rounds. Getting closer.
5.
5. A little bit. She's champion now. Wow. 7.5. That's the answer. All right. So remember 7.5 in 1 second. 1 second, and the light can go 7.5 rounds. All right. Okay. So what is the time? Go and back. 1 round time. 1 divided by 7.5, right? What is it? 133 milliseconds, all right? So 133 milliseconds. So 100 milliseconds is 1/10 of a second, right? So it's almost one, right? 7.5. So, okay, think about the 133 milliseconds. You don't understand, right? Okay. If I throw something to you, you want me to try? And then you're going to be escape, right? All right. So you are watching what I'm throwing to you, and then you see by your eye, and then your brain is going to be, let's escape, right? And then move your head. All right. That's your brain decision by the sensors from your body, right? Like eye, right? So you see something, and then you decide, and then you move. That's basically consume 400 milliseconds. All right. So your decision making with the brain needs like that number. So if you train very well, so if you are familiar with the Fujii sensei about drama in this campus, then he's doing the fastest drama in the world type of researches. So it's amazing that it's decreasing the number of that physical reaction time to shorter reaction time when they are playing music and the jazz music and then hitting the drums. Then if you touch the heat, fire, accidentally, then your finger's going to move right away, right? Because it's hot. That is a nerve. Your nerve is moving and controlling your body. That is a speed like 50 milliseconds. So it's much faster. So the 133 milliseconds all over the world is something in between those reactions. Okay. So think about this Earth, this planet is 10 times bigger. then it's a very, very, longer latency around the world. But since it's 133 millisecond minimum, therefore it's very likely that we can do the teleconferencing and the communication in a kind of natural way, right? Because our brain anyway needs 400 millisecond. It's 100 millisecond is 1/4 of that latency. So I always think that thank God creating this planet as this size, because we can communicate over the internet, right, in the real time. So that's about the site. So that's probably having you the idea that what is the internet and what is the internet can mean to the human being communicating each other. And then, if you are thinking about the further services for elderly society, weather, and the other big issues, earthquake mitigation, and the other things, then you might want to care about how the tsunami is going to, drive and the moving and the suffering the people, and then what kind of alert that you can generate over the internet to the people, having a time to escape enough, and then what's going to be a time. And if you are interested in that kind of new system, then you have that kind of idea that then probably internet can work for the tsunami thing. Tsunami is always like 20 minutes, 30 minutes away. So you can provide enough information for the people. If the entire people in the kind of possible suffered area of a tsunami, if they have all smartphone, and we can do much better job saving their lives, right, for the future. That's your job to work. So safetyness includes that kind of thing. Also be the scope of I'm not saying that being an exact cybersecurity thing, but the security on the internet can include that kind of thing. Okay, so who should be responsible is the issue about governance. When the internet became a lifeline of anything, then now, for a long time after the development of the internet, government didn't care about the internet, or government sometimes uncomfortable with the internet because it's a global space without asking them, and that they don't have a control. They didn't care until the, say, 90s. And the big business opportunity that was observed, that is sensing the government senses of big money moving around. But the year 2000 came, and then Y2K, this is when the year 2000 comes, and the computer is going to destroy it, and the world is going to be destroyed because of the computer infrastructure. Did you hear about Y2K? Y2K. Nobody knows about Y2K. That's another generation gap. Yeah? 生まれてない. Okay, My Fair Lady, you don't know My Fair Lady, you don't know Y2K, all right. So anybody heard about Y2K? Year 2000, Y2K. All right, Y2K is a very big issue about the fear of computers going to be crashing all over the world, and then it's going to be panic on the world. So science fiction movie Y2K. あったけど, can we see the Y2K movie on Netflix or Hulu or whatever? I never saw that movie again. That was a big hit on the year 1999. Yeah, but we never see that movie. If that is a movie there, then I want you to see that movie, Y2K. There is a book and DVD ある? 1 yen. 1 yen. All right. Anyway, so the reason why is that the year was represented in two digits, right? Sometimes we do that still, right? 2 digits, only 19 is this year, right? And then the 99, and then the next year is going to be 00. So if you stay in the hotel from December 26th to January 4th, and then they're going to subtract the year part, and then it's going to make a mistake, big mistake, right? It's going to be turned out to be a minus, and then the software is not expecting to be having a minus on the 2 digits. Then they're going to be in a problem. So there was a problem, and fixing it for the later 90s. But if something built-in computer is going to be going crazy, and then the world's going to be crashed. So that was the first cyber fear about infrastructure. And then 9/11. You know about 9/11, right? I was in New York at that time. JFK accidentally inside the airport, evacuated, stayed in New York, and then also receiving a lot of requests from the U.S. government that how the internet is going to be like. And so a lot of questions came. And then when that's a nightmare. I was watching from the JFK airport for the Manhattan, and there was a smoke coming in, and I have a picture I took by myself, and then spreading into the sky of the New York. And then so what they did was the United States closed the airline network by the edge, so all the airplanes arriving, target designated to the U.S. airport was actually arriving in Canada from the north. And from the south, they stayed in South America, Mexico, and there they couldn't get in. So isolating the United States from the airline network. So their question was isolating the internet and then isolating the United States from the internet. Is that possible for the rest of the world? That was a nasty question from the US government I received. So I said, we're okay outside the United States. Then traffic, most of the traffic generated from the United States, we don't have a very much about traffic, and the routing can be supported. So we can survive even if you isolated the United States from the internet. But you can't. That was my answer. United States could not live without the internet that time already from the economic point of view. So that time, then they started to care. So early 2000 years, then they started to care about the stability, and that they have to protect the internet, the infrastructure, otherwise their economy is going to be crushed. And then even all the messages from Osama bin Laden was by the email, therefore over the internet. So then U.S. immediately setting up the various investigating regulation in order for the protecting from the terrorism, then they can step into the internet traffic contents. That was they immediately created as a law. So U.S. got the government had a privilege for they step into the internet in order to protect from the terrorism. That's their status. We do have a constitutional law that secrecy of communication and no surveillance by the government. Therefore, our government cannot do that. So it's a diversity on the nation, right? So the nation started to care about the security issues in general on the cyberspace, internet, starting from the early 2000s, okay? So that's the beginning. Well, we, as a designer of the internet, has been working from the late 80s about the security issue on the any protocols. So you can be you can steal the account from somebody else, and then we have to design. We call it security by design. So when we are designing the internet applications, then we have to think about the security, so that make sure that the proper users can access the proper resources, and the proper communication can be achieved. So that was mandatory for the designing the internet from the late 80s. But it was not that serious, frankly, because the internet users was internet developers, almost equal from the first point. So we trusted each other. And then, year 2000, after 95, and everybody started to the internet, so including the abusers, right, on the internet. So then something wrong happening. And then, if they turned out to be a lifeline of the people, then the government started to care. For the security reason like this one, but another reason is that the big economy moving around, so they care about the internet, but also the good side also moving the government to care about the internet. For example, a little bit later in the history, but the year 2012 was a big year because United Nations started to think and they started to discuss actually about accessing the internet is a human right. So when that's a good thing. You see? All right, good thing. Yeah. United Nations decided to define that accessing the internet is a human right. Good thing. Well, I don't know if that is a good thing. Nobody? You believe in the United Nations, right? You know what the United Nations are? All right, United Nations is a collection of nations, right? Okay, so they think about something like a human securities, right? So the kid has to be protected and other things. Good thing, ethical, mostly, right? So some of the internet people started to worry about that kind of a discussion at the United Nations, actually. Why? If that is a human right, then any countries belong to the United Nations have to be responsible of providing the internet to the people, right? Okay, that means government installation, right, in many, many small countries. Then, government controlling the communication is not the design of the internet, right? Internet was designed for the global space, and not a single government is responsible for operation. This is a totally distributed way. That was at least kind of process-wise. And when the government wants to have control, then so we sometimes believe in our government, right? From many countries, you believe in your government, right? But sometimes you have a problem with trusting your government, right? So in many ways, and especially when the unstable countries and the nations, and then the government itself is very weak, sometimes not good for the people in there, right? If that is the case, then remember, internet is a global space and the human being. And then, so if the conflict between the government and the citizens in there, then, so the internet is for the human being, then, when the government is going to be kind of responsible on the internet operation, that's going to be like, they can do the checking all your communication, they can suffering your privacy. That's very likely happening. So we keep the internet staying on the internet, not the full control of the government. So therefore, when the United Nations started to think about the human rights, that's good, thank you, and then that's our reactions. But there is some fear and the worry about the government stepping. So that was my honest reactions, and then I hope you understand. I'm not saying that it's a good idea, bad idea. I think generally it's a good idea to view the internet space like that. And I believe that internet is a lifeline for the entire society. But also, I want you to understand that my fear about if controlled by governments too much, then it's a very difficult situation sometimes somewhere in the world. So I've been working with Sakamoto-san for a long time in this country. I'm an internet person, and he's a government person. And so I believe Japan is a very good example that the internet, they are respecting us in terms of operating the internet by private sectors, communities, and protecting us from the government point of view. So other government politicians wants to control the internet, sometimes even in Japan, but the MIC especially, it's going to be very helpful in terms of respecting the principle of the internet. And so Japan has been a good example of the relationship with the government and the internet. So I'm very proud of their behavior to the internet, and also I'm proud of Japan's role in terms of international space, and then telling at the UN space, Japanese government having a very strong opinion that we shouldn't control the internet very much by the government. So that's a message. So those messages coming from the internet advanced countries, right? Europe, America, Japan. So I really respect that we are one of those nations who understand each other. So that's basically the balance of cyberspace in the real space. Real space responsibility was certainly on the government, and then the global space is going to be not necessarily be a joint operation of the countries, but it's a more autonomously operated. So that's a characteristic, and the difficulty, giving us a difficulty for the future about the internet governance. Okay, so so can we go to the government structure of Japan? When the cybersecurity started, okay, let me start briefly about what's Japan's case in terms of, okay, this is good. Okay, this is, all right. So, all right, okay, this picture is very, very, can tell you everything. So I'm going to start with the blue one, all right? Look at the blue one. This is a basic act. Basic act is a kihonho in the Japanese language. The formation of the Advanced Information and the Telecommunication Network Society. All right, that was set up in the year 2000. All right, so by the Mori administration in the later 90s. So the internet technology was largely developed by us. And I told you that in this campus is doing a lot of magic, but this is one of it. And one of the economic professor came to me. I told you last week maybe that the Japanese internet is very behind. He told me. And then I know that Japanese internet is now leading any other countries in then developing all the core software of the internet that time, later 90s. And so I was very much surprised that he said that Japanese internet is behind. No. Japanese internet is the world #1 now. And so I thought, I didn't say that. No. So I was surprised that he said, I asked why, and he said, no government sector are using the internet, not the, economics, tax, bank, education. They are not using the internet. Therefore, Japan is falling down in terms of economy. So that's very bad. Internet has not been used. Therefore, Japan is sinking. In my mind, I said, that's not my fault. I have a very good technology contributing to the world. But I understand him. And then, okay, I understand now. So Japanese use of the internet is not very good from a policy level, government level, okay? So what should I do? What can I do? Because we're leading technology people. Well, I can help. And he said, yes, come to see Prime Minister. That's what he told me. His name was Heizo Takenaka, the economy professor of SFC. Afterwards, he's going to be a minister, and then in administration of Koizumi administration, he was in charge of most of the thing in this government afterward. But that was, he was a colleague professor in this campus, so I was even not thinking about that kind of approach for the deploying the internet. But then we created that one, the blue one, together. So Takenaka-san and myself writing that the strategy that Japan's going to be a world #1 internet broadband country. Okay, that was the mission, and then the target in 5 years, 2005. But it was achieved in 2003. So our target did the thing. So it was a lot of discussion. I didn't understand about how to write a law, how to work in the government, how to, so I was just an engineer. And then so I learned everything, and I did the kind of stupid thing supported by government people, but government people didn't understand. But anyway, so that's very successful one. And so then the Basic Act is basically defining the philosophy. So Japan wants to be the world's most advanced broadband country. Okay, this is a principle, right? So Basic Act is talking about those principles and creating the committee or headquarters to move that thing. So that's the IT strategic headquarters was director is the prime minister and the created. So it's a kakugi, the cabinet meeting, and including ourselves. So it's a kind of private members. So that was the year 2000. And then, so IT strategy headquarters have been responsible for any cybersecurity thing. So we have a subgroup of cybersecurity things. But now, cybersecurity is going to be a big issue, and then we need to allocate a different budget and other thing. So we decided to kind of branching the new one and redoing the basic strategy policy thing again. And the Basic Act on cybersecurity in 2014 created that way. And then, so we have a headquarters again, cybersecurity strategic headquarters, and then, headed by, this is a security issue of the national security issue, which is usually taken care of by, not by a prime minister himself, but the chief cabinet secretary, Suga-san, this case today. But that time, I don't remember. But anyway, so that was 2014, we created the cybersecurity headquarters. And then after that, then we decided another thing that now digital data is a big issue, and we have to protect the digital data, and Europe is moving for the GDPR and other things. So we have to be ready for that. So that's a basic act on the advancement of utilizing public and the private sector digital data. That was 2016. And then again, creating the new headquarter thing for the digital data. But it's exactly the same as the IT strategy itself, right? So if I'm on the member of a blue one, I'm on the member of a green one, and I'm going to be a member of a red one, that's going to be a 3 times meeting at the Prime Minister's house. That's too many. So then we decided to red one and the blue one exactly the same. Same member, same meeting, and the same thing. So it's a virtually single one, all right, overlapping. So I'm now reducing the number by 1 in the 2 meetings at the Prime Minister's house, okay? And one more thing, too, especially to nice students, right? Okay, this green one was created by your professor, Suguru Yamaguchi. By the way, I have a news today that last week, Suguru Yamaguchi was awarded for the Internet Hall of Fame. Congratulations. That's a very big proud of NICE, and who started this class. He passed away 3 years ago. You have a slide, right? Yeah. Okay. All right, that's different. But anyway, so last week it was awarded, and it was in the public. So congratulations. And his son received the prize. I couldn't attend that, but anyway, so the green one was created in a very strong efforts by Suguru Yamaguchi sensei in the government side, and I was on the private side. So we talked overnight in our strategy. So their side, our side, and then the NICE is a national university, so it's kind of moving the human resource to the government was easy. And so he accepted the job. He left the university for years, and then preparing for that organization and running that organization. So he was the chief contributor of creating that one. So very much, so you now understand that how important this joint class is, right? So NICE has been always a security leader, cybersecurity leaders, including the Yuki sensei. And so that's about how the government's going to be involved. So the why the Prime Minister's house is going to has to move, because it's not. It should be reaching all the ministries, right? Ministry of Transportation, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Communication, Ministry of Health. The IT, the internet has to reach all of them. Therefore, it has to be in the central organization. We don't have a White House. Well, this is almost a White House type, right? Well, White House is the Prime Minister's house equivalent. But anyway, so it can reach, if they decide, then it can reach all the ministries functioning and the dividing silo, but this can overview. So that's the reason. So it's a very similar, well, some level similar in any other nations. Cybersecurity is going to be sometimes part of the IT strategy, but separated from IT strategy, and then belong to the central government, and then making a decision and the policy of the nation's cybersecurity issues. So That's the reason why we're going to discuss not only the technology issue, but also the policy issue, because that's a big concern of the government. And so how the government is going to be working is going to be important. But don't think that government is the only responsible entity, because cybersecurity is going to be a responsibility of internet operation as well, and the users as well. So somebody mentioned that everybody is creating this space, cyberspace. So that's a very important part, that each participant, including yourself, of the internet is going to be responsible of the stability, safetiness, and accuracy, trust of the internet itself. So, I introduced a government structure, but it's not the only one. So government also working together with us, and then working on this issue. Okay, and go ahead. So we have some of the cybersecurity issue, and well, the launch and the other thing and the history, but maybe we're going to come back to this again when we have time. But the important thing is the last line in the next year is going to be Olympic Paralympic thing in Tokyo, and then Olympic Paralympic thing is a very big event for any of the internet. When you were accessing the Google News top page, it's every day changing, right? And it's changing depending on yourself, right? Your favorite one is going to be a pop-up. The dynamic top page arrangement, especially on the e-commerce site, that happened on the Atlanta Olympic long time ago. And Anycast, the distributed domain name server access, that was achieved on the Nagano Olympic time. The accessibility for the accessible home pages, that even the people without eyesight can access nice web pages. That's accessibility of web pages. That happened on the Nagano Olympic time again, because everybody accessing both. Nagano Olympic was the first Olympic and the Paralympic having a together event, as a together event for the first time. So we worked on that in that time. So Olympic is always important. Beijing Olympic was 4K streaming testing was done. So we're going to do a lot of testing on 2020. So that's important time, but also these years, it's well known that the cyber attack, it's like a cyber attack festival, right? Olympic time, because everybody watching it, and then I did that. So it's a kind of a nasty things happening, but the serious things are also happening. So it's it's a kind of national event for the cybersecurity as well. So we've been working on that. So in the cybersecurity policy history, then we explicitly noted that the Olympic and the Paralympic is a big one. All right. So the last, okay, I only have 3 minutes left, and one more slides we can do. Okay, this is about the strategy, so I can skip that. But the only slide I wanna show is, this relationship. Okay, the last one is the relationship with the cybersecurity and the IT strategy and the national security. Okay, those three entities. Now, having this type of structure, communicating each other. So national security is covering in this country the two areas. One is national security, like a national, the cyber defense type of activity, and also a cyber crime type of activities. And then the cyber security is more toward general in the industry-wise and the economics. Right? And then moving the economics out, ahead is IT strategy. Okay. So they need to communicate very much. So this structure is also similar to any other governments as well. So if you're maybe we're gonna generate some kind of assignment that you're gonna check with your nation's cybersecurity situation and the reporting back to the friends in the class. So sometimes we're gonna do that. Okay, so it's about the time deしょ? 35分までだっけ? All right. So any final question, comments, or good from the Yuki-san? Any final comments for the?
Yeah, so I think cyber also includes lots of components, and internet is one big piece. And recently we got encountered with the big trouble of AWS, I mean Amazon Web Services. And due to those big trouble in Amazon Web Services, many businesses are affected. So I think the essential point of cyber is to have redundancy. I mean, have multiple elements back up each other. So if you observe internet architecture, internet is comprised of multiple elements, which is essentially complementing with each other. So that kind of spirit has to be transcended over all of those elements, including IoT, cloud, etc. So I think we are still on the verge of evolving the architecture. So cloud and IoT and AI included, and all those elements has to be redundant, resilient, and we'll see how these architecture will evolve toward future generations. That's it from me.
Okay, thank you very much, and I think the time is up. So that's it for this week's class. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy weekend.
Thank you.